Bay Ridge. Welcome to another edition of After Hours. We're continuing on Sundays on our series on God's covenant. We're talking about three separate parts of that covenant. And the second one, I developed a lot dealing with in our relationship with us as humans to other humans. We were looking at the idea of the image of God in us as humans and how that leads to the dignity of every human and also the sacredness, the sanctity of all human life. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that we have been in a long war with the image of God ever since creation. Again, in the fall, it seems like whatever God's intent and purpose was, whatever was there in the covenant, when we fell and we violated the covenant, everything got turned upside down. And so the image of God, which is central to who we are, it defines who we are. It's our very nature and character. It also talks about the dignity and worth of human life, the sanctity of every human life. It deals with human sexuality and marriage and the family. And we've turned all of these things upside down. And we see this from the very earliest days of humanity. For example, when the fall happens in Genesis 3, of course, the very next story in Genesis 4 is Cain and Abel. And Cain actually strikes out and kills Abel, thereby literally attacking the image of God. In the same chapter, Lamech comes along and he makes the statement that he's 7 times worse than Cain. He's killed 7 times as many people as Cain. And so we see murder really moving along. Pharaoh ordered the murder of unborn children, children just as they were being born. We see that there's sexual sin in Genesis 6, and then again later at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, the perversion of human sexuality. We see throughout Scripture things like polygamy, divorce, the using of concubines, all of which are a degradation of God's design in the family. And we can see a lot of this if you just look in one chapter in Romans chapter 1, where Paul seems to bring a lot of these things out, how rather than creation serving us, we're now worshiping false gods. It leads to sexual immorality and gross sexual sin and divorce and disobedience to parents and all kinds of things that Paul lists there. And all of these are really, in one sense, just the symptom of our long war against the image of God. And this is not only something that's relegated to the past, we can see it throughout Scripture, but it continues down to our very day. And many of the things that we see happening in our culture, many of the confusions and the immoral choices that are being made are actually an attempt to go against the very image of God. It's part of our ongoing war with that image within us because sin wants to reject against God in His very image. So for example, we kill the unborn today, just like we see happening in the Scripture. We murder preborn humans, and we simply try to act like it's something other than murder. This is just a wad of cells. This is all of which is insanity. It makes no sense logically, biologically, medically, rationally, historically, ethically, religiously, or any other way. But in our war against the image of God, we will literally sacrifice our unborn children. This week is Sanctity of Human Life. Actually, when this comes out, we're right at the time of the anniversary of Roe versus Wade. This is a continuing war against the image of God. As I spoke on Sunday, Christians have to be engaged in this in prayer, personal actions, making sure that we are engaged in trying to have this horror, this modern day Holocaust overturned in our culture. But it's not just abortion. We see the same thing as well with racism. Racism strikes out at the image of God. It declares that those who are the image of God are somehow lesser. In fact, even the very idea that there are different races indicates that somehow we're like a different species, but we're not. We are all the human species. There is only one race, the human race, and all of us, regardless of our ethnicity, bear the image of God equally. This sickness and disease has been around in human history, but it has particularly been a problem here in America. Since our very founding, we have dealt with slavery, and then there was the whole KKK and Jim Crow, and coming out of even that, racism continues to be a problem today. And make no mistake, when racism beats in your heart or mine, or we allow it in our culture, it is nothing less than striking out, being at war against the very image of God. We also see it in the way that many of us struggle with rejecting the poor and immigrants. This sometimes isn't done just by actions, but even our words will do it. The way we speak of people who are wanting to immigrate to our country, for example, belies attitudes that are a strike against the image of God. Because the dignity and sanctity of human life does not end at the birth canal. It does not end with a different skin color. It does not end at our borders. Every human being is the image of God. And to treat them in words or deeds as anything less than that is actually participating in the war against the image of God. We've also tried to destroy it in our day, in our culture. We're seeing this in our attempt to morph and change and destroy, actually, marriage and human sexuality. The entire array of all of these things that have come out of the sexual revolution are a reaction back to what God instituted in the covenant of creation in Genesis 1 and 2. Where God makes male and female, we want to declare there is no such thing as male and female. Where God says marriage is to be a man and a woman who leave their father and mother and the two become one, we want to have polygamy. We want to have open marriages and relationships. We want to have easy divorce. We want to declare that it can be a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or whatever different formats, all of which goes directly against the covenant of creation and what God has done for us. And it's part of this war against the image of God. Now, I bring all this up because if you're sitting here as a Christian and you listen to all this, you can say, it seems to be without hope. There's so many different areas where we're fighting these battles and we can't even fight them on one front and it comes out on another. How do we do all this? Well, I want to remind you of three basic things that can encourage us. Number one, we have to remember that all of these things, who we are as humans, what it means to be the image of God, how we ought to respond to other humans, life being from conception all the way until our natural end at death and not something that we force upon it. The true human sexuality, what marriage is meant to be, all of it is woven into our very genes. It's in our very DNA. It is woven throughout creation. There is literally no escape. So no matter what people might proclaim, they may be the emperor out there proclaiming that they're in a beautiful suit. They actually deep down know that they're naked, that it has there's no reality to it. Secondly, I want us to remember that truth will win out in the end. Because it is woven in all of creation, ultimately truth triumphs. And so we need to take heart in that, no matter how much people may be metaphorically putting their finger in their ears right now and screaming against it, truth will win out. And then finally, the last thing to encourage us is, you and I are not called to be successful, we're called to be faithful. Truth may not win out during my lifetime. Truth may not win out even during my children's lifetime. It will win out ultimately, and on the final day, I won't be asked if it won out in my day. I'll be asked if I stood faithful. Did I support the image of God, or did I participate in the long rebellion against that image? Friends, we want to be found faithful. So I hope this helps you think through these issues. I hope it's encouraging to you to continue on standing for the truth and for us to walk in the graciousness of God's covenant with creation. Hope you have a great week, and I look forward to gathering for worship this Sunday. God bless.